guys. I'm doing the sort of intro preface system again because I've still got a fair old set of clips that I haven't used for more video. More, you say? More video? Oh no. Anyway, the situation has advanced significantly, in relative terms that is. So I'm going to put the last set of clips together, and I'm calling this part 6, which gets us close to completion. There are a lot of bits and pieces left to be done, and that in the fullness of time will hopefully happen. It's warmed up out here. It's gone from 22 to about freezing, so I'm nearly sweating. Anyway, here come the last set of clips for the time being, just to get you up to speed, and any part 7, which hopefully will, or maybe a final, we'll get to that eventually. Thanks for staying with it. Alright, so there's a new copper ring, which is clear enough by quarter from the sheet cladding, and that will allow for the tensioning brushes, sorry, the tensioning springs to be mounted within that circle. The incoming ground cable, that's got to be changed position slightly so that we lose it under the copper ring. And for these, I think we'll have to machine up some slotted topped pillars. Well, this video has probably got a bit tedious by now. I keep jumping from one thing to another and changing my mind on stuff, but anyway, this is another step I want to try and get done. I think I showed you one of these monstrous brush springs, and they're so potent I thought I really can't use them. So I called in to see a guy in town, and you can probably see that, hopefully. That is a much smaller, much lower powered, shall we say, brush spring, and I managed to get 3 of those. They'll take up less space on the baseboard, but I shall have to make a pillar to hold the central tang and work out a way of adjusting the tension. That's another headache. Anyway, the next step in a minute is I've cut 3 pieces of aluminum channel, and these are basically all I need for a brush. They've got to be, I've got to get the file on these yet, they're not smoothed off. Let's try and get one of these. Oh, that one's probably been freed off already. So depending whether you can see there, I only want about 3/16 projection, maybe 1/4 inch, and that'll leave me enough access to the rear for the spring. But I've got to cut these sides off, which I may have referred to before. I've got to take those off and close the thing in, and this is where it gets a bit tricky. I've cut some 3/4 pieces, and the idea here is I'm hoping that we'll have that as side 4. We'll have a mounting hole each side to go onto the baseboard, and then the main problem, let's zoom in a bit, the main problem is fixing the piece of bar here across the channel. Now, if I had the teak that I so desperately want to get, and I don't have, I can't do a weld job on it. So what I'm thinking at the moment as a possibility is, although this is only 1/8, I think if I can drill down with, I think, a number 53 to get to about 1 thou short of the diameter of this piano wire, which is 061, I think it is. So I can drill a hole of round about 060 and hopefully make short pins, probably 2 each side, to secure that. And if at the end of the day the securing doesn't seem adequate, I've got some tiny sheet metal screws, but they're so small it's going to be a pain in the butt. So I'm going to try pinning this, and if they don't seem secure enough, because it'll be the other way round, they'll actually be this way round, obviously shorter, I'll have to make a strap, probably a thin steel strap, maybe thin aluminum, whatever I've got, just to keep those together. So that's where we're at for the minute. Now we've got to cut these down, smooth them off, and drill some tiny holes. Okay, here goes something unorthodox. I want to try and cut the tops of these pieces of channel, and I want repeatability, and I want a decent cut. I don't want a hacksaw by hand. So what I'm trying is, I've got a slitting saw mounted in an arbor here, and I've set up for depth, and I can't clamp this because I've got to move it along, so I'm going to see if I can get away with it. More a case of here goes nothing. Pretty slow going, but we'll see how that works out. As I say, totally unconventional. Do what I can with what I got. Well, it's slow going, but we're getting a result. The thing is, I got set up for the same depth, same dimension, so I should be able to repeat. It's a bit slow, but we'll persevere on that so I get a decent face. Then we got to play with tiny holes, as I mentioned earlier. Well, that was a fiddly little operation. Weird way to go about it, but I don't think I had an easier way. And the thing was here to get a fairly clean machine face on these webs here, and then if I put the closing piece of bar across, which may or may not be easy to see, I've actually got, I didn't dare go too tight. I could machine off a little bit more, but I want this to be an easy sliding fit. The amount of tip, I've probably got about, I don't know, 5 thou, maybe a bit more float in there, but I think we're fairly good at that. So now we'll try and make some mini holes. I'm just drilling these pieces of bar. Well, it's not very focused, is it? I got them marked out, and I'm using this Jacobs mini drill to get pilot holes on the bar. The advantage of that is the ability to sort of hand feed, regulate the pressure. Right, well these are CA glued onto the channel, so I've made a start on the holes, but I'm going to use some heat and break the CA bond and drill the rest of the angle on its own, which is still pretty darn slow. Right, we're broken the joints and noticed finishing to depth, only going in about 1/4 inch, and out of the piano wire we'll make approximately 1/4 inch pins. Just do a check for depth and see if we're about right. Yep. That'll work for that one. These are centre popped for identification, so I can get the because you can guarantee the holes aren't all absolutely perfect generally. Now I'll complete the others and then we'll see if we can pin them together. Well, everything's all drilled. I'm assembling the first one, and I'm just going to try and set these pins right the way in here. A little bit to go. A little bit to go. Alright, that's the first one assembled. 4 little pins. Still got saw cut showing on the edges here. I'm not going to worry about that. Now the critical thing, of course, is to see if what I've done with it now. Oh, there we are. Well, there's a little bit of float in that. I might have possibly made the tolerance a little bit less, but I don't think that amount of tip is too important. I think if I'm really pushed, I can wrap a little piece of shim material round here, just on that surface, and tuck it round, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. I didn't dare go too tight, otherwise I could relieve the brush. So we'll try and get the rest done and see where we go from that. Well, that was a long and tedious process, I gotta be honest. These holes for screws, they're slightly oversized for the screw I'm going to use, so I'll use screw with lock washer and give me a little bit of final adjustment. The next job is making some pillars for these brushes that I'm getting brain damaged here. The brush springs. They're going to need adjustable pillars, and I've got to work on that, so I'll have to probably machine something up. That'll be the next step, and then hopefully we're getting a bit closer. It's taken long enough, isn't it? Well, I've been thinking about how to set up the brush springs, thinking of all sorts of options, but in the end I think I've thought of the simplest. I almost had a eureka moment this morning, because I just need to be able to rotate these to get the tension right. So here are 3 fender washers, and I've done a very basic slotting job, just serial drilling and filing. The idea being that they will rotate around what will be a central pillar. These holes are nominally quarter, but they're sort of quarter clearance plus plus plus. So I want to get a decent fit on there and a bit of weld underneath to secure, and then the top will be just slotted to take the tang of the spring. Now I found a piece of fairly ropey old 5/16, so I'm just going to turn that down so I can fit on the washer and then weld it and make a slot on the top. Guys, you're going to laugh. I keep changing. Oh gosh. I was holding one of these on the underneath where the turntable will be, and the inner copper ring that I'd put back is going to be in the way. So I'm going to go back to the outer copper ring, which I'll show you when I move the camera around. In the meantime, I'm going to turn down this bit of 5/16. God dear, how many times have I changed stuff? Well, despite having rather short spells out here with cold weather and lack of time, I was trying to be a bit more brief with my video clips. I talk way too much. Okay, here we are at the moment. We've got the dummy, sorry, I'm not very steady here. We've got the dummy hub in here. We've got the brushes in delta formation. The newly made brush guides are fitted, and then the next step, hopefully later today, these hang on, these plates that I made up out of washers, there's one sort of dummied up, but one of these, I've cut these 1/2 inch pieces off the 5/16 that I machined down a bit, so I've got to weld one of those into each of these little base plates, put a slot in the top. You can see the tang of the spring, which actually will line up with those lines, so I've got to get those made up, and then we can get those fitted, make a dummy piece to mimic the hub, slightly bigger, so we can put the turntable on, and we'll see where we go from there. Lots of bits and pieces to finish up, but I think we're getting there. Now we've got the brush wires fitted up. At the moment I'm using some quite long 10 gauge screws, which are done up real tight. The contact washers there have been polished. That's my main ground coming in. Same thing there. If necessary later, these will get soldered. I'm going to see how they get on. I don't want to make anything too permanent yet. Once I'm happy with things, then maybe I'll solder up. Now the next step is we've got to do the brush spring pillars. Now we'll try and get these spring pillars done. I've got 3 of them. It's this is just over 1/4 inch. I turned down some 5/16, so we've got a slot in the top for the spring, which isn't going to go. It isn't going to go to full depth. It doesn't need to, and that keeps me about on center for the brush. And then the other end, each one has well, one had a center drill, so I decided to do the others. It'll give me somewhere to put some braze. I've decided to braze this as against try and tack it, because I want to keep the base plate reasonably steady. I don't want to get wire sticking or anything, so I'm going to try and put a little bit of braze on there. I've got a very nice, still got a few rods left. This is a very forgiving braze rod with flux coat, so I'm going to try that, see how we get on, and then if this one works I'll do another and show you. Alright, well, that's the first one. You know what, my hands are so cold I can hardly operate. what I've done here is I've had to use a fairly hot flame because of course the heatsink is effective in the little rod down the middle. So I'm going to set up for another one, see how we do. I forgot to mention the base plates here I've put on the flap wheel, got rid of any plating. So let's see if we can get fired up again. I don't know whether that's enough. Now I got to slightly make the puddle a bit bigger. I've also got elastic that's gone stupid on my welding mask. Alright, that's a bit better. The trying to get the braze down into the hole that I center drilled, and then a little bit of spread onto the base plate, and then I'll file that off to smooth. So we'll try and get the third one done. Right, we've tidied these up a bit. Not the smartest of jobs because I've leveled off underneath and it's about as flat as it needs to be. This one had a little bit of braze leak, but not important. Probably making excuses, but I think I could do better if I had warm hands. Anyway, I'm going to try and get these fitted on the turntable board and see if we can get some tension on the springs, on the brushes. Alright, well, we've got the spring mountings on, and not too bad so far. We've got quite a good bit of spring there. The dummy hub turns. I can feel the resistance, but I think the motor will handle it. And as I said earlier, I think the connections around the outside are stage 1. I may change that later and solder when everything's permanent, but in essence the springs are working, and I'll probably do an electrical test, take an ohm reading, see if the resistance is low enough. And now I'm going to go and get warm. I've machined down a washer. It started off as 1.5 inches, slightly oversized for the 5/8, which doesn't matter for the pin, and I've set that up between the brushes. So I'm now going to find out if the turntable will go on and push the washer to the bottom, and it's less than 1/8, so it should sit down there all right. We'll try it and see. Well, I'm just seeing if I can get a shot of this. Try and get some, I've got daylight coming in, but there we go. You see that the washers drop down, and I'm assuming it's down below the aluminum base section of the brush guides. It's about the best shot I can get, I think. There's so much stuff in the way there now. So there we go. That would appear to let that go down all right. I put the chuck on, bolted it up. I haven't polished the back of the chuck at all, but I'm just pressing with the probe on top of the chuck, and that is on that contact there is on a jaw. Nonetheless, we'll probably try and work out a way of doing a jumper across to go to the workpiece from the turntable somehow or other. One or two people anyway have said best not to take the current through the chuck, but I'm not sure that it may not be alright for low current. Have to give that some thought. Alright, well, I've accumulated quite a few clips of video. It's probably time I just put this to bed at the moment, and it'll probably leave us a little bit to finish, odds and ends, get it working, maybe test it out. So I think we're nearly there. So I'm going to say quits for this part 6, and eventually do hopefully a final, if it all works out. That's the big question, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for watching.